Most of us on YouTube have one way of making scrunchies, and it's the way I think everybody learns how to do it. But if you're looking for a new way to crochet scrunchies, this is the video for you. When I was looking for something new, I decided to take a look at the way people who sew make scrunchies. And I have to tell you, I think it gave me a much more luxurious type of look to it. And if you stick around to the very end of the video, I will have a couple scrunchie tips for you if you aren't used to wearing scrunchies, haven't worn a scrunchie in 30 years, or if you have short hair and are making these for someone else. My name is Shannon, this is Shannon Talks Yarn, and I would love it if you would join me for a new video. Here's the traditional scrunchie we're probably all used to making. Let's get started. To make this project, I used a couple different supplies, but nothing out of the ordinary. I've got a hair tie for my traditional scrunchie, scissors, yarn needle, crochet hook, and some elastic. I'm going to go ahead and start out this traditional scrunchie. If you're brand new to scrunchies, or you're a brand new to crochet, this is a great project to start out with. And I'm starting with my basic run-of-the-mill hair tie, and I just tied my yarn to it. I'm not really worrying too much because I'm going to hold that tail under as I crochet along, and if there's any sticking out, you can always just snip it off. It is fine, but I like my scrunchies to be nice and secure, and since all that's hidden, it really doesn't matter. So I am starting out my round here that is next to that with half double crochets, and you want to just kind of squish it a little bit to make sure that when the scrunchie is stretched, you don't have any gaps. So I'm finishing up that very first round, and I am going to go ahead and then I will slip stitch into that first half double crochet right there. So you can see what that looks like. It's got the band covered and it is a great start. So I'm going to go ahead and do this next round with double crochets. So half double in the first round, double crochet in the second round. And what I'm doing here is I went ahead and chained 2, and then I started in with my double crochet. And to give it that kind of ruffled flouncy look, you want to put more than one double crochet in each of your stitches from the first round. I like to put 3 in as far as this yarn is concerned. This is kind of a soft, lightweight 4-weight yarn, worsted weight, and like I said, I just thought it was good to have 3 in each stitch. If you have a thicker yarn, you might want to adapt, maybe only put 2 in each one, just whatever looks good for the amount of ruffles that you want in it. I thought I would tell you about my yarn real quick here. I had thrifted this yarn. As you can see, I paid 75 cents for this, and this was, I'm not really sure how to pronounce this. Lana Moro Forenza brushed. I'll show you what that looks like here. Look at that cute little kitty on there. And this doesn't say a lot. It says machine wash and dryable, 100% super high bulk brushed acrylic. It was a 50-gram ball with approximately 180 yards knitting worsted weight. I just thought it was super cute. There is this pattern here for this lady's sweater, and I had previously discovered the age of a yarn by a pattern on the yarn band, and it had a copyright date on it. I searched all over in this and there was no copyright date, unfortunately. So this is all I know about this brand. It did say, I think it was made in Turkey. Imported and manufactured by Lana Moro, New York, New York, made in Turkey. Step 1 for making these thicker, luxurious scrunchies is by making a rectangle. This needs to be the dimensions of 20 inches in width or length, however you want to look at that, and then the height of it needs to be about 4 inches, so you can see a long rectangle. You can make this with whatever yarn you want. I would recommend using the hook size that, the yarn suggests for it, but you can make it out of whatever yarn. If you are brand new to crochet, I would honestly suggest getting something like Red Heart Super Saver. It's inexpensive, there's a ton of it, and you can find it everywhere, and it will be easy to work with. The retro stripe is one of my favorite, but if you're an experienced crocheter, you can use whatever yarn you want. Obviously, you know, like the fluffier and squishier the yarn is, if it's got fuzzies, you know, a halo, anything like that, it will be harder to see your stitches. But you know, in this project, if you skip a stitch or whatever, it really is not that big of a deal. But like I said, you want your piece of fabric to be about 20 inches long. You could make it probably up to about 22, and then the height of it needs to be about 4 inches. And if it's a little over, that's fine too. Um, we're going to end up folding it and making it into a tube. So let me show you how that looks. On this particular scrunchie, I ended up doing my rows lengthwise instead of shortwise, just to get two separate different looks, but you can see they're about the same dimensions. And what I did was I just made this into a tube by doing a single crochet all on the top. I've got my panel here, and I'm going to go ahead and fold it in half. So you can see if you make it about 4 inches, it'll be about 2 inches there. And what I did discover later on is if you want even like more of a ruffly type edge, I did single crochets for this project, but in the cream color one you'll see in a little bit, I ended up doing a half double crochet, and it did give it a little bit of an edge ruffle. So my thoughts, even though I haven't done it yet, is you could probably actually put in a double crochet as you're seaming it up, just to give it a little more ruffle. So I am tying these ends together. Again, I am not being super perfect about this. This really doesn't matter. And I just put my tail down the tunnel or the tube, and it will be kind of encased in there. So you can see as I get going here, I am just bringing it through both sides and putting that single crochet in there. It takes just a little bit to kind of get everything held together, but it's not a big deal. And to be honest, one of the reasons this is such a great project for beginner crocheters is that if you make a mistake, no one is going to see it. You know, this tube will be bunched up, so you don't, yeah, a mistake is not the end of the world in this. You can see my tube, the opening there, and I am just going to get going down the rest of this tube. I've said this before, but I wish I could crochet that fast. Once finishing the tube, we're going to use this elastic. I bought this at Joann Fabric, and it was around $3 if I remember correctly. I'm sure you can also find it at Walmart and any other craft stores. This particular one has 15 yards in it, and I am only going to use about 6 inches per scrunchie. So you would get tons and tons of scrunchies out of this. But you can see it's pretty stretchy. And, you know, I think if you were making this for a child, like smaller scrunchies, you would want less in it. But with this, you have to remember you need to leave, like there I am just making it about the size of a hair tie, but you want to leave yourself a good, you know, half inch or inch on each side to tie it. So this is an important part I want to show you here, and I'm going to be threading my elastic through my tube. And I found it easy enough, since this tube is only about 20 inches long, to go ahead and tie. I just put a double knot on the end of my crochet hook. You can see it's a little longer than the crochet hook. And you do want to hold on to the end of that elastic as you are threading it through, fishing it through, whatever. And I'm just bunching that tube up on my crochet hook. And, you know, this does take a little bit of hand dexterity. It might be difficult if you have some arthritis or anything, but so you can see I've still got a hold of the end down there. You want to make sure you do not let go at this point. And what I'm going to do next is slip that off. And I did hold on to it. You don't want it to slide into your tube. and then you just pull that crochet hook right on out. So I'm going to do my best here to hold on to both ends of my elastic so they don't shoot into the tube. And I am going to untie that knot I had put in there. It really wasn't hard. I did not tie it unbelievably tight. So there I am. I've almost got it. And once you get that, just bunch that crochet tube up on there. And I did leave a little too much, or I did too much of an elastic length on here. But you can see I am just tying that together, and I am going to put several knots in there to make sure that it is nice and sturdy. And you guys, I was so disappointed, but this is real life, so I will just come clean. I thought I was recording. You notice I had two other blue scrunchies. Two. And I did not get this footage of me doing it to either one of the blue scrunchies. I was so disappointed. So I had to go back and crochet up another tube, and I did not have enough of the blue yarn. So here I am with the cream, but that's just fine. So you want to snip off the extra elastic, and I am taking the tail from that crochet and just shoving it into the tube. And like I said, there's no reason to spend a lot of time weaving all these extra ends in when they can just be hidden inside of it. So you can see my two ends there. And now it is time to sew those ends together. So like I said, I got this from some sewing tutorials, and of course they had to deal with hems and turning it inside out and all that stuff. And you don't have to do any of that with the crochet, which makes it so easy. I am going to start sewing it together on the inside just because I thought that would make it easier. I am going to go ahead and weave in these tails, but I still thought it would be easier to do it in a less conspicuous spot. So while I am sewing these, I'm going back and forth. I didn't want to do a slip stitch over the middle of it just because I thought that would make it seem a little bit more noticeable. I do not know what the name of this stitch is, but I just brought it through one side, went up to the next stitch, and then brought it back over, just back and forth, as I went. And you do want to make sure that you don't accidentally sew through the back side and attach it. I mean, it wouldn't be the end of the world by any means, but it just wouldn't be quite as full and thick in that area. So I am going the same technique back and forth down across both sides of the openings as I go. And as I get down further a little bit here, you want to make sure you get enough in there that you don't leave a gap, even though you probably wouldn't actually see it. But as I'm getting down here towards the bottom or the inside of it, I am just going to go ahead and drop my yarn needle right through the hole of the scrunchie and flip it back over so that I can start working on the other side. And yep, there I go. Not making a stitch, just dropping it down through the center. And I want to get this as close to my starting tails as possible. So I'm just going to make another stitch here. And then I am going to go ahead and tie these two together. And again, I'm not really worrying because you're not going to be able to see the knots. And I'm putting a couple knots in there just because this is pretty soft yarn and I want it to be secure. So you can see how well that scrunchie worked. This is that Hirschner's Afghan yarn. It was that scrap that I had used in my velvet yarn video. And what I'm doing here is I am just pulling this through a couple times. This is my long end. Be mindful, again, not to accidentally slip it through both sides of the crochet fabric. And then what you want to do is just kind of pull it tight and get down close to your scrunchie and snip it, because what's going to happen is when you pull that scrunchie and stretch it, those little tails that are sticking out will just hide in the center of it, like all of our other tails. So I do need to go ahead and re-thread my needle here. And I'm going to go ahead and get that threaded, and I am going to repeat the process of just bringing that through. And with this one, you know, I only had to put it through once, and that was plenty in order to hide the tails in there. This yarn is so nice and soft to work with. Again, like I said, it's Hirschner's Afghan. And I'm going to do the same thing right here where I snip it real close to the scrunchie right there, and then just stretch the scrunchie out to get rid of that. Now I do, while I'm right here, I do notice there's a little bit of elastic. I left that a little too long. So I am just going to snip a little bit more of that off. Again, same thing, not a big deal, but I'm really happy with how this turned out. To me, this just feels like a sweater. Like, I absolutely love it. So here are my scrunchies, and you can see here is the traditional one. The big benefit to this one is that it is super quick, super easy, and does not use a lot of yarn at all. So you can, you know, do a lot as far as scrap yarn projects with these. Or if you were making some to sell, you would definitely get a lot more for your money using these. This way uses significantly more yarn. And you know, you can really see just by looking at it. But that's part of the reason I am so much more into this new technique now. I just think they are just really nice and luxurious. So I had the one that I did my rows long lengthwise, and this was half double crochets in the back loop. This was half double crochets in the back loop, but I went shortwise on this one. So the ribbing is two different directions. And I do think this one did end up being like maybe an inch or two longer than this one right here. So if this one seems a little bit floofier, that is probably why. But oh my gosh, I about dropped them. They are so nice and squishy. So, you know, let me know what you think. So here is one, look one, traditional scrunchie. Here is look two. This is the one that had the ribbing the short ways. So there is a lot more ribbing on it. But look how squishy. And then here is the fullest one right here with the lengthwise ribbing. So I promised you a bonus tip for anyone who isn't used to scrunchies. But the number one thing you need to know about scrunchies is the scrunchie itself is not meant to hold your hair in place. It is a decorative accessory. So if you haven't had a lot of luck wearing them in the past, that's probably why. So here is Shannon's trick to getting a nice full bun. My hair is pretty darn long, but it's not very thick. So what I do is I actually got these scrunchies right here. It is velvet. They're real thin. You know, they're maybe like 3/4 of an inch in thickness. They came in a 3-pack from the Dollar Tree. So I got them in shades that blended in with my hair. There's like a black one, a navy one, and a burgundy. So, you know, if you have blonde hair, get like the neutrals. And the velvet might be enough to hold your hair up here. If not, just get a regular hair tie first and put that pony in nice and secure. And then I take the velvet, and the velvet does an awesome job of kind of keeping your hair, I don't want to say sticking it, because it's not like sticky like a textural thing, but the velvet holds that hair in real well. So put that in there, and this gives it a little more structure and a little more bulk that isn't just the hair. So I take it, and sometimes it takes me a couple times to get it to look right, but I just kind of twist it a little bit as I wrap it and bring it around. And then I get these little jaw clips. also from the Dollar Tree, and I just kind of put them in on both sides, kind of towards the back, where that scrunchie is going to go, so it'll cover it up. And then that's how I get that messy bun up there, and it is super secure. um, so at that point, that would be when you would come in and put your scrunchie on the bun. Thank you for meeting with me today and spending time with me as I made these scrunchies. I always really appreciate anytime you watch a video, and I appreciate all your comments as well. If you've got other ways of doing scrunchies, I would love to know about it. My new format is I will have a new video up on Friday. I will have a podcast up on Monday, and then Tuesday I will have a live stream where we go over the same topic. So hopefully that's not beating a dead horse, if you've ever heard that expression. You're just like running it into the ground, whatever. We'll kind of see how this goes for a while and see if it works or not. But if you do have other tips and tricks, definitely put them in the comments or bring them to the live stream. I would love to hear about it. So there will be a video right up here that YouTube thinks you would like to watch. And right over in this area, there'll be a little button that you can click on if you would like to subscribe to my channel. If you enjoy this type of content, I would love it if you would consider subscribing. Always, guys, thanks for talking yarn with me.